I wanted to share with you today my process for staging a property to sell. I've had some questions about how the process works, and that's usually when somebody calls me up, whether it's a homeowner or an agent, they usually want to find out how it works. And so I wanted to share that with you today. And so how does home staging really work, and where does it actually start? So usually what I recommend is that if you are thinking about so how does home staging really work, and where does it actually start? So usually what I recommend is that if you are thinking about selling your home at some point, even if it's 6 months out, it's worthwhile for me to come in and staging consultation. So what does that mean? A home staging consultation, I come in and I assess your house room to room, and I give you recommendations on what you need to do in order to have your home showcase its best features and attract as many potential buyers as you possibly can. And some recommendations can include painting, decluttering, changing out some light fixtures, some kitchen hardware, and if you have it within your budget and resource, to make some updates even to kitchens and bathrooms, because those are the two things that typically sell. And so I usually provide you with a written recommendation, a list of things that I recommend that you do. So my advice has always been you take on as much as you possibly can. And, you might not be able to tackle that entire list, but the list that I will be providing to you is very, very comprehensive. And so tackle as much as you can, just recognize as much as you possibly can. And, you might not be able to recognize that the more you do, the better your house is going to show, and the more it's going to help you perform when it's on the market. And so what that means is that's a list of homeworks. That's why I recommend that you bring me in to do the consultation as soon as you possibly can. That way you have the time to do the homework. Sometimes what happens is that I'm brought in fairly late in the process, and so everybody's rushing at that point to get things done, and it can get very overwhelming with the list of things to do, especially if you're working and you have a young family. So if you spread it out and you give yourself the time to get the entire list done, then it won't be so overwhelming for you. And so that's a list of homework that I leave for you, and you tackle that as much as you can over a period of time that you've allotted for yourself. And then when it's ready, that's when the staging magic happens, and the real transformation can then begin. And so in terms of what I bring in, it depends on what you have in your house. Sometimes your house can have great furnishings already that I can reuse, in which case I'm just bringing in some accent pieces to tie everything together and to build a story. However, if your furniture is a little bit outdated and it might not appeal to the mass audience, then I do recommend we rent some furniture and we bring in some furniture, some more contemporary and neutral pieces, again, to highlight the space. So if the space is and you currently have large overstuffed furniture, then I recommend that you bring in some smaller pieces in order to showcase the space and highlight the space, as opposed to the opposite of making it feel too small. So when I do stage a property, I bring in a lot of pieces. So it's not just a few accent pieces here. I bring in artwork, rugs, bedding, so that you don't need to go out and buy any of those things, as well as all the decor pieces for every single space. And so, one of the things that my clients really appreciate is that they don't have to go out and invest in accent pieces and artwork and accessories that doesn't really suit them, that they don't like, and that they have no need for it once they move into their new space, especially if they're downsizing, right? And so what I recommend is that I bring all those things in. You're renting it from me for a period of time until the property sells. And then I take it all back. And then you can decide to either buy some new pieces or stick with the pieces that you already have, and everybody's happy. So how long does the staging actually take? Well, it depends on the size of the property and how much needs to get done. If I'm only working on a few rooms, it could only take a few hours. But if I'm working on the full house, then typically it will take as much as a full day for me to do so. But a lot of planning does go into the process ahead of time. So during the consultation, I'm usually assessing the space and determining what I need to bring in already and taking measurements and things like that. When I'm back at my office space, I'm already planning out each theme, the theme for the house and the theme for each room, so that I know exactly what I need to bring in. And usually it's pretty full load in terms of what I need to bring in to stage a house. And even if you have all the furnishings and decor already, it's a pretty full load in terms of what I need to bring in to stage a house. And even if you have to see how much I actually bring in. And so another question that I sometimes am asked is, should the homeowners be there or should they leave? For me, it really doesn't matter. You can decide to stick around and watch me work, or you can go to work and give myself access to the house so that I can let myself in. Once I'm done, I then lock back up and leave, and it's all well. I am completely and fully insured. So you can definitely rely on me to keep your house in a great condition, and everything should be in place unless I've had to move it for staging purposes. And so, and I welcome if you want to stick around because you either work at home, want to see what I'm doing. I'm more than happy to have you by. You don't need to help, obviously, because my sister and I will do all the work. But sometimes what we find is that when we get to the house and it's actually not ready to be staged, we're actually still removing some things that you still have left behind. That's when you have the opportunity to help us put it all away exactly to where you'd like to have it, so that you know exactly where everything is when you need to find it again. But, sometimes I find great value in the homeowners there, observing what we're doing, because that's when they're going to see the great value in all the things that we're bringing in and how much we're able to transform a house from the time that we arrive to the time that we're done and we're ready to leave. It's quite significant typically. And one other thing that I want to recommend is that when you are living in a stage home, that's a very important process. And sometimes it can be pretty stressful, especially if you have a young family, a young active family. But I do recommend that in order for the house to continue to show as well as it can be during the listing period, you need to make sure that it's always sort of show ready and stage ready. So what I ask clients to do is to make sure that they have photos of how each room was staged, and then in as best as you can before you leave for work in the morning to put it back into that condition, because you never know when you're going to get a showing during the day. And of course, you don't want to limit when the showings can happen. As soon as you get a request for a showing, the house should be ready to be shown. And so you always want to make sure that it's ready and do as best as you can each morning and each night. After everybody's settled down and you're ready to get to bed, just give the house a nice sweep or a vacuum, clean the countertops and things like that. And that way there's less work that you need to do in the morning. And if you don't have showings, that day that you're aware of, then what you can do is not make the bed and So you can leave it off that day, but if you know that there's a showing happening, then make sure that you make with the bed with the beddings and the accent cushions and throws that we put you, and we leave behind for you to do that with along again using the picture as an example in as much as you can. So once that's sold, really, then what happens is that you let us know when it's done, and we will come in and we will decide for you, and we leave behind for you, and we take everything out that we put in and leave your house in just as good a condition as we found it, of course, and there's nothing else that you need to do. So the process for you, after all of that homework is done and you've taken care of it as much as you can, after that we take care of everything else, and there's very little left for you to do. And what some of the things that been told is that the process seems so easy and seamless once we come in and take care of it, because really once the de-staging is done, then you can get ready to get packed up and move.